Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Random Review Series. DBougie86 here again, and I have a very special random review for you guys today because today I got a chance to view the newest film from director Paul Ragsdale. Of course, if you don't know who he is, he directed Cinco de Mayo a few years ago. Of course, that film is a slasher film with a lot of cool, 80s homage styles, and he brings back those 80s homages with his newest film, which is Streets of Vengeance, which is pretty much his homage to revenge genre in general. Pretty much what this film details is we're introduced to our main character, Mila, who's this young woman who's in this industry of the porn industry, and pretty much she wants to get out of this industry to follow her love of artistry. She's an artist at heart. She does paintings, street art. She sells her art on the street, and she wants to get into that more. So she's telling them it's quits after this one last movie, and pretty much what ends up happening, led to believe, anyways. There's actually this route of killings that are going around San Francisco between this serial killer known as the San Francisco Slasher. And also, what's going on is Miller actually has an interview on this TV program where she gets into a scuffle with this head of this organization who pretty much disavow and disbelieve of her profession and women in her profession, pretty much, and the hatred of that profession. And unbeknownst, Mueller actually ends up being targeted by this killer and captured, and ends up escaping and surviving the ordeal. But she finds out in the process that actually these mass murders that have been happening are part of this group that's she had a scuffle with, and they're taking out women that they don't like, pretty much. So what Mueller ends up doing is creating her own group of strong women that she knows and learning to fight, and they end up getting revenge on this group, and it all ends in this all-out battle. That is pretty much the main plot of this one without going too crazy into it. Now, my thoughts on this film. If you haven't seen Cinco de Mayo, this film starts out very similar to Cinco de Mayo in a way. Pretty much is, if you haven't seen that film, it starts out as this TV program called All Night Long with Stacey Monroe, and it's like this character of like this host, Stacey Monroe, introduced in the movie, and she comes back in the middle of the film where she tells everyone to take a break, and they show like a preview for the next week's movie, and then she closes out an outro for the film after the credits, which I did like because it makes you feel like you're watching like a late night 80s like TV program with a host. And I miss that about like TV in general in this time and age, and you don't really get to see that a lot anymore. So it was cool that director Paul Ragsdale does that in his films, and you really feel like it's like that in a way, and it's awesome. And now getting into the film itself, when we're introduced to our opening credits, pretty much we're introduced to the soundtrack to the film right there and then, and I was glued to the screen watching with the soundtrack playing, of course, with the composer's name is Vestron Vulture, and this score is awesome. It pulsates. It has a lot of awesome 80s synth style with it, and a lot of mixtures of other things in it too. Like there's some rock music that goes into it, and awesomeness. And it's a really awesome soundtrack, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks I heard so far from any film newer film anyways, that I viewed so far this year. And I have to say, just the story in general and the characters I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Delana McKinney's performance as Mila. Very strong, and I like how her character builds throughout the film, and I like her interaction with the character of Brian, who is her sidekick in a way in the film when we're introduced to Brian, and he grows as a character as well as the film progresses, and it's a great interaction between characters, and I really did enjoy that aspect of it. And I like all the other characters too, because they're kind of funny in some ways, like her friend Amber's boyfriend Rico, who has this scene with Brian in the middle of the film, which is pretty fucking hilarious. because you're not expecting it to happen, but it's pretty funny. And this film has it all, like the aspects of the homages, like very homage to like those 80s revenge films that we all love, like Savage Streets. And there's even a few like different types of homages that happen in the beginning, because the beginning of this film actually feels like a giallo in a way, and the way, or a slasher also, with like certain and I felt like I was watching like a earlier mid 80s giallo, like the New York Ripper. It had like that sort of feel. And there's even like a homage to a certain Dario Argento film that we all love, that comes in the film with one of the kills, and it's awesome. And you'll recognize it right away when you see it on screen, because it's a very distinctive image that you'll see in the film that is very homage to Dario Argento's film in question. I won't ruin it for you and will tell you what film it was, but it was a pretty awesome homage. And it's a lot of like awesome like Italian like camo work that happens with the film also, with like reds and green tinges that you see in like Suspiria and all that good stuff. And it's a really awesome film with like that aspect. Plus there's also like these great 80s moments too, like, you know, if you're like seeing like a like in certain 80s films where they have like the homage of the girls looking out at like the beach and stuff, they have that in this film. It made me feel like I was watching like Less Than Zero in a few scenes, or just reading the novel by Bret Easton Ellis, which is a great novel, by the way. And it made me feel like I was in like a Bret Easton Ellis novel through like certain scenes and aspects, with like slow moving driving on the beach, very like homages to like that type of 80s pulp culture and stuff. Really awesome stuff. And there's awesome gore and effects and some nasty kills and brutal kills in this film, I have to say, with like certain characters and what happens to them, and they get it. And I was just glued to the screen for the end. This is an awesome popcorn flick that I think everyone will enjoy the homages that goes within it. Really great stuff. Great performances by its cast. Great music. Great everything. I highly enjoyed this film, guys. If you have one thing to say about it that I think it could have toned down a little bit more on, is the length of it. It is a little tad too long. Maybe if they cut like 10 minutes out of it, it wouldn't hurt the film that much. But it's everything that I loved about it is also in it too, in certain scenes. So I see why they did that. But it could be a tad long for some people, but I did enjoy it for what it was and what it is. It's a film that homages these great films that we grew up loving, and they did it in a way that we grew up watching it too. So I highly enjoyed it. So if I had to rate Streets of Vengeance, I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend this film, guys. If I don't actually know when it's going to be like released on media or anything, I'll leave you the links below to like the Streets of Vengeance Facebook group page, and other links too, like trailers and stuff like that, to find out more info when it's going to get a wider release. So look out for that in the future. And as always, guys, I'll see you next review. Peace out.